When you trespassed Mr. Huffman here, he told him outside the building and reported to the sheriff's department that he was being trespassed for violating federal law. Correct?
That is correct, sir.
You did say that to Mr. Huffman?
I cited the DPPA that day, yes, sir.
You did cite the DPPA?
Yes, sir.
And you claimed your attorney wrote that up?
No, sir.
No.
I claim we received that from an attorney.
You received that from an attorney. Can I play the clip?
He agreed to it. I don't need to see it.
Oh, so you agree you trespassed him for violating federal law?
Yes, sir.
Can the general public violate the Driver Protection and Privacy Act without access to the database itself?
I'm not an attorney, sir. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. Are you still operating under the Driver Protection and Privacy Act for your video recording policy?
Can you explain the question, sir? I don't understand.
Are you still operating under the USC 2721, the Driver Protection and Privacy Act?
It is.
Is that still the policy limiting video free press inside a public lobby?
It is an element of the bigger policy.
It's an element of the bigger policy.
Yes, sir.
And does it hold any weight in law? Is it any law?
You're asking me again a question, so I'm not an attorney. I'm sorry.
Is this new sign based in law at all?
Is the new sign based in law
Mm-hmm.
at all?
Mm-hmm.
Not an attorney. I can't answer that question.
But you said an attorney wrote this?
No, sir. I never said that.
You wrote this?
Correct.
Okay, so this new, you took out the DPPA sign down, you trespassed someone for violating it, supposedly. What evidence did you have that they violated the DPPA? What information did they disclose to the public?
It's not relevant here.
It's a separate issue, sir.
I'm trying to be flexible. You can know that you're doing this yourself and not an attorney, but what happened in that case is not relevant to the.
The relevance is that he trespasses for the same reason. The very next time, him and I together.
That's not correct, sir.
It's not. Why did you trespass us on May 30th?
The same thing I reported to the deputies, that you were interfering in business. I believe the language I actually used.
I was interfering in business.
Torturous interference in business practices, actually, I believe I said it verbatim.
Where on the trespass notice does it say torturous interference?
On our trespass notice? Or on the one that the deputies wrote?
The one I have? The one I was trespassed with.
Which one are you referring to, sir? I'm sorry.
It's not a requirement.
What's not a requirement?
It says tortious interference.
So he can say torturous interference to the police, and then the police can write a different thing on the trespass warning? That's contradicting.
Mr. Filax is welcome to make that argument in his closing argument.
That's a closing argument thing?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Okay, when you say tax collector's office, the whole building itself is not an office, is it?
We refer to the whole building as an office, sir.
But it's just like slang. It doesn't mean the whole thing is an office. Obviously, you have to have a public lobby.
We have certain policies that refer to them as facilities,
Sure,
offices.
sure.
In the spirit of what we're discussing today, when I say office, I'm referring to the entire office. Obviously, we have private offices that are smaller.
Were we in anybody's personal private office?
No, not in the private office.
Did we go in any other place outside of a public lobby?
You never went anywhere, to my knowledge, outside of the public lobby on that date of the 30th.
So I was in public the whole time, in the public lobby.
You were in our lobby, yes.
I was in your public lobby where the general public comes in every single day.
You know, we're kind of going around.
Okay. Had I gone behind any clerks?
Not to my knowledge.
Did I go in any offices where I have to open a door and there's an office like with a desk and computer and somebody's workstation?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you bring a deputy back in those offices?
On what day, sir? On the 30th?
On any day?
We've brought deputies back multiple times for multiple different reasons.
Okay, do you remember speaking with Deputy Schrock?
Deputy Schrock. Is he the supervisor on duty?
He's the one that looks like he's 18 years old.
Deputy Schrock, yes, I do recall him. I did not speak to him on that day. No, I did speak to him on that day. I also spoke to him on the first occasion with Mr. Huffman, yes.
Okay. Was he allowed to record back there?
Is Deputy Schrock allowed to record?
Or was he violating your policy?
Check the relevance.
The relevance is if I can't record in public lobby, how can a member of the sheriff's department go back where all the private information is and record body cam that can be requested from the public, which we do have. Do you currently have a private office you take deputies in where they cannot record?
We have, yeah, recording really hasn't, we've never really addressed that.
Do you have a dedicated room where no recording is allowed, period, either by police or the public?
No.
So where you took Deputy Schrock that day, what office is that?
To my knowledge, on the 30th, on the incident we're discussing, I don't believe Deputy Schrock came back.
I'm not talking about the 30th. I'm talking about any time you talk to Deputy Schrock.
Yeah, I don't know how that's relevant.
The relevance is he was recording, and you said some things on his recording that you did not state outside. You contradicted yourself very much so, and I believe you filed a false police report. That's why it's relevant in my situation, because you filed the same report, torturous interference.
I'm not following, sir. The time that I recall speaking to Deputy Schrock was the first time regarding Mr. Huffman.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the May 30th event and you, sir.
It does, because you're saying we're not allowed to record in the office.
Mr. Mayor, how do you want me to proceed here, sir?
Again, it's discriminatory. If the cop is allowed to go where all this sensitive information is, and we can request that body cam footage, which we
The
did.
body cam footage that you're speaking about with Mr. Schrock, I'll address the question if that's okay. I had no idea he was recording.
But what's the relevance of that he's recording?
Because if I understand, you're trying to build an argument that my knowledge of him recording was allowed to have happen,
If you knew he was recording, what would be the difference?
then I would ask him not to in that private area.
Oh, so when it's us standing there in the public lobby, it's a huge issue. But when a publicly worn body camera goes back where all this information is, you're unaware of it happening, you lose sight of somebody recording. Is it just because you don't like civil rights activists? Or did you say to Deputy Schrock, come on back here, you're one of the good guys?
I'm going to interject, and I want to know, he's the third witness that's testified that the difference between this appellant and someone like law enforcement or surveillance in the tax collector's office is the disruption to the business. Additionally, the sheriff's office is a government agency, and if they were going to release anything with confidential information, it would be redacted prior to being released, which cannot be said of the appellant.
Of course it could be said for the appellant. I could also redact any and all information I accidentally gathered, which was not my intent in the first place. Like I said, we were there to commit a 60-second transaction with this gentleman, and he decided to do all this instead of taking paperwork and we leave peacefully. Decided to incite the public, heckler's veto. He lied up front, said he was violating federal law.
You can make your argument when we get to that.
Okay. I forgot where I was now, so overruled, sustained. Can I keep going?
I lost track where we're at to. What was it?
On Deputy Schrock camera, did you say, come on?
May I address a couple of things that he just brought up that I think is relevant to the situation? Or is that not procedural?
Respond to questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sorry.
When you spoke to Deputy Schrock, you said, come on back here, you're one of the good guys. What did you mean by that?
That I support law enforcement.
And they're one of the good guys.
Law enforcement are good guys, yes.
All the time. They don't commit any crimes, they don't kill, they don't rape, they don't kill animals.
I did not say that.
Okay, so they are good guys always, never, sometimes? Do you know what every single one of them is thinking? What they've done in their past?
Yeah, I don't see the relevance either.
I would never say
The relevance is, he was dealing with us. He takes Deputy Schrock back where he has a huge problem with all this information, publicly recording, and says, come on back here, you're one of the good guys. Well, who's the bad guy then? The people that pay the taxes? Who are you? Who's the bad guys then in that situation?
There was no reference to a bad guy,
Right, you're saying he's one of the good guys, as opposed to who?
as opposed to bad people that exist.
Were you referring to us as bad people?
I am not, sir.
Do you believe that we're bad people?
I don't.
Do you believe we were there to disrupt your business?
Unfortunately, I do believe that.
You do believe that? Did the gatekeeper tell you why we were there?
She did not.
So, did you look at any camera footage?
I looked on active camera footage in my office.
Right. Of the whole event, or just when you got there?
So I couldn't look at it until I got there. So when I went out and noticed you and Mr. Huffman there and confirmed that you were there disrupting business, I went to the back and then began to observe on the recording to see if you were going to stay in order to then figure out whether or not I would have to engage law enforcement.
Do you understand that your gatekeeper told us to wait there for you and you'd be right out?
I did not know that, sir.
So you didn't know that aspect of it?
I did not.
Would that change the outcome of the trespass?
100%.
So if we went in and we said, we want to speak to Timothy Quet, we just want to hand him this paperwork. She says to us, He'll be right out. Just stand by. We stand by. We wait, we wait, we wait, we wait for literally to hand you a piece of paper, and then we walk out the door. Instead, it turned into, again, a full-blown case where I got to spend hours and hours and capture video and to try to prove myself innocent. I was doing nothing but peacefully recording. Do you disagree?
I do disagree with that, yes, sir.
What was I? Was I doing something unpeaceful?
Yes, multiple occasions, sir.
What's that?
You were engaging with the public in a way that was, in my opinion, disruptive and unprofessional.
Did I engage with anybody first?
I don't know, sir.
Then, okay, so if a person engages me, I'm supposed to just, what, not respond to them? Someone says they're going to kick my effing ass.
I'm sorry that happened, sir. I wish it hadn't.
Well, it happened because your clerks told them that we're the reason you stopped serving the public. You understand that you incited that.
I don't admit to inciting anything that day, sir.
What made all the customers angry?
What made all the customers angry?
Was it me confronting them, or was them engaging me?
The customers were angry because we had to stop business in order to make sure none of their personal information was violated.
What makes you think any personal information was being disclosed?
We don't need to think that. We need to make an action based off of what we perceive is a recording happening to make sure that our part of the DPPA is upheld.
If I were to capture DPPA sensitive information, who would be in trouble for capturing and disclosing that information?
I'm not an attorney, sir. I don't know.
Would that not be my issue?
I don't know, sir.
Would I be the one breaking the law at that point?
I'm not law enforcement, not an attorney. I do not know.
So certain things you can have a legal conclusion, others not so much, depending on the question.
I can speak to the policies of our office, sir, but I can't speak to legal conclusions based on actions or inactions that you take.
Did you say outside the DMV that he was violating federal law? You already answered that. When you went inside on Deputy Schrock, same day, within minutes, come in here, you're one of the good guys, you admitted to that, and then you said, for all intents and purposes, everything okay? For all intents and purposes, we don't know what they're going to do with that footage. This is considered torturous interference.
Footage and the torturous interference were two separate things in this case. I mean, there you go, sir.
Did you tell Deputy Schrock they're engaged in torturous interference for all intents and purposes? I have a video clip if you need to be reminded.
There were a couple of deputies there. I believe Deputy Schrock was there when I did address you and Mr. Huffman in that situation.
And you said we were engaged in torturous interference?
In our business, that's correct, sir.
Okay. Do you understand what torturous interference is?
That you're disrupting our business practices.
So you're making a legal conclusion now?
Based on our policy, yes, sir. I can speak to our policy. That's what I can speak to.
So according to your policy, you're making legal conclusions?
The legal conclusions are already made. I'm
By
just
who?
enforcing the policy.
By who?
By attorneys.
Which attorney?
So there's an attorney with the Manatee County Tax Collector's Office or one of their contract attorneys that developed a policy. We adopted that policy, and by adopting that policy, we then enforce the policy.
When you say adopted, you mean copy and paste from their website?
Yes, that is.
If I told you that the lady who ran the Manatee County said that policy has nothing to do with the recording in public or thwarting First Amendment activity,
I'm not aware of any conversation you've had with anybody.
would you believe me if I told you that?
Objection, hearsay, improper impeachment.
I agree.
Okay? Now, did you tell Deputy Schrock on his body cam that, how did you put it? We got this from the Manatee County because there was a guy there who thought he could record in public too. Again, I have a video clip if you need reminding.
I may or may have not said that, sir.
Okay.
I did admit to Deputy Schrock that day that we did get our video recording policy from the Manatee County Tax Collector.
And how did you do that? By copying and pasting from their website?
Yes, and there's been previous conversations that we've had because this is a statewide issue with different people videoing inside of the tax collector's office.
So different people across the state are engaged in free press in a public lobby, and it's an issue.
Sounds like a leading question to me.
Well, I've asked you, you've answered some legal questions.
I'm answering it based on the policies we have,
Okay.
sir.
So you created a policy.
I cannot speak to what the other tax collectors, the severity of what they've dealt with, but I can tell you is that there have been multiple issues across the state with video recording in tax collector offices, all the way to the point of a legal opinion being drafted by our association.
Okay, and
That's an attorney.
has any recording ever been investigated, prosecuted, convicted?
I don't know that I can answer that, sir.
So you don't know of any case in the statewide problem where a person recording stole identification, used it in a malice manner, used it to benefit them, or used it in an illegal way?
There's a case that I'm aware of, even though I'm not an attorney, Sheets versus Punta Gorda.
Correct.
I'm not sure exactly all the legal description of that, but Sheets versus Punta Gorda is a legal case that I believe addressed this issue of video recording in public areas. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Is that ordinance, the ordinance for Punta Gorda, is that statewide or is that just Punta Gorda?
Objection to relevant.
You brought up Sheets versus Punta Gorda.
I don't know the jurisdiction issue.
You don't know anything to do with that case, any specificity about that case?
I know very little about the case, sir. I just know that it did limit the ability for an individual to come in.
Do you know why?
I believe it had to do with their individual privacy of the other people.
The people in public.
The people that were being recorded and that their personal information was potentially being jeopardized.
Do you know that's a highly contested case?
I'd like to think further question if the attorney is asking a witness about interpreting case law.
Yeah, I agree. Judges.
Okay. So the only case you know about is the highly contested Sheets case of all these people recording in public places. There's no other conviction, there's no other court case off the top of your head of this huge problem of people recording in public.
That is the one that I'm aware of, sir.
That's the only one you know about.
To
About
my
this,
knowledge,
even though you're saying it's a statewide huge problem.
I know it to be a statewide huge problem in different tax collectors' offices. That's separate from my knowledge of
Ma-
the Sheets versus Punta Gorda case.
When you say problem, people have been stealing information, or a problem, just your opinion that it's a problem?
If you would like me to define the problem, I would define the problem as video recording in tax collectors' offices that disrupts business
In what way?
and our inability to complete transactions for the public, which is part of our mission.
How is a video recording stopping you from completing your transactions? Let me ask.
The appellant's made it abundantly clear that he doesn't like the tax collector's policy. Unfortunately, this is not an action to challenge the constitutionality of their policy. So I understand it's somewhat relevant to his argument today, but he's gone way, way deep with this.
Yeah, I tend to agree. You're giving me a lot of leeway
Okay.
because this is a Vax proceeding of being quasi-judicial. It's not the same as strenuous evidence standards as the courtroom are supposed to still apply. And
Even though I was threatened with arrest.
I'm sorry?
Even though I was threatened with arrest, and I could be caged for what he's reporting to the police.
So my decision, why we're here today is they issued trespass to the county
Mm-hmm.
based on the county code. And you've appealed it.
Mhm.
My decision, the purpose of today is to decide whether they properly apply their code to your situation. If you have a problem with the code or the policy, that's outside of what I can rule on.
Do your policies have any weight in law?
Our policies are incongruent with law, yes.
They're congruent. Can they be actionable by legal means?
Can you define that for me? What do you mean by
Can someone violates your legal policy, you can have, your video policy, you can have them arrested.
We wouldn't do the arresting. We would.
Can you have them arrested?
Can I request that they be arrested?
No, sir. Can a police officer arrest somebody for violating your video recording policy?
That's a legal question or a law enforcement question, sir. I don't know the answer to that.
Why didn't you request that we be arrested for violating your video policy?
I did not.
You did not. Why didn't you?
I didn't.
If it's so
because-
egregious and such a huge problem.
Because we requested you be trespassed.
So again, if the gatekeeper told you that we were just there to hand you documents, you would have willingly come out, grab the documents, and let us leave.
Yes, sir.
So it's a communication issue.
You won't get an argument with me on that.
So this whole thing could have been avoided if the lady at the front desk told you we were there to hand you paperwork. It was a 60-second transaction.
I'm not going to disagree with
Why
you.
didn't you come speak to us when you came out?
Because I was there to assess the situation to determine whether or not business was being disrupted and whether or not I had to take further action.
Why didn't you ask us while we were there?
Because at that point, you had already been there. We had already shut down business, and I already had concluded when I walked out that business was being disrupted.
But I was told to wait there by your gatekeeper.
I was not aware of that, sir.
Okay, so this sounds like the big hang up in the case. So if you knew your gatekeeper said he'll be right out, just wait right here, this would have never happened.
Object to Mr. Quinn speculating as to.
You wouldn't have called the police.
May or may not.
Would you have called the police? Would you have called the police?
There's an objection on the table, if I understand this correctly.
What's the objection?
The answer calls for speculation. He's asking you to say what might have happened.
He's already testified that he wouldn't. It would be a totally different
The
story.
objection is asking answer then.
Okay, so we're establishing. So, and the reason you couldn't just come out and ask us why we're there, or ask us to leave, or tell us anything at all, was because we were being so disrupted by standing in one place, holding paper, that 5 deputies needed to come up and trespass us from a public lobby, even though we didn't do anything to anyone.
Your recollection of the events are different than mine, Mr. Filax.
Please tell me your recollections. What am I getting wrong? Did she not tell us to come in and wait for you and you'll be right out?
So I was never aware of that, number one. So
You've never spoken to her about that?
Have I spoken to her about that?
Yeah.
After the fact, I did, yes, sir.
Now, did she tell you? She told us to wait there for you to come out.
She did.
And you still think that we should have been trespassed, even though over a 30-second exchange, and all the business should be shut down.
The business interference had already occurred after I was aware that
And
you were only there to see.
again, I'm still failing to see what interference.
Well, we can address that if you'd like to. go
Sure.
through that. So the simple setting up of a tripod
Mhm.
with a camera on it and the appearance that you were recording violates our policy and requires us to shut down business.
Right, so again, by definition, where's the disruption of business? Who did I prevent from doing their public business? Anyone?
You disrupted the 30 customers that were there at the time.
But did any of those customers say anything to you before you shut business down?
Not to me, I did not.
So nobody before you shut business down said anything about me being there?
If I may, I did not, I never interacted with a customer. I was in the back observing on the cameras, the security cameras in our office, the conduct of you and Mr. Huffman to see whether or not there was going to be a need to call law enforcement for a trespass.
So were we yelling?
There's no audio on this.
Were we flailing?
No, you were interacting with customers that I can see.
Was that before or after you decided to shut down the place and tell them it was because of us?
Well, I didn't arrive until after the business had been ceased.
And are your witnesses? You heard your witness say, Jerry, that no one said a word to him up until the time you guys decided to stop business and blame it on us for standing still where the gatekeeper told us to stand still and wait for you for a 30-second exchange.
Again, we can go around and around. I did not know about the exchange. The very instance of you setting up a tripod in our office with video recording violates our policy. It puts other people's personal information at risk, and it forces us to shut down the office. By that happening, that is interrupting with our business.
Whose information did I get?
None to our.
Did anybody report to you that I took anybody's information?
Shut down business, sir.
No, you didn't have to. You made that choice. You can sit here and say you had to.
By our policy.
And your guy said that I have control over the clerks. That's not true. You make your own decision. And the policy and the law actually says, argumentative, excuse me. You decided to shut them down. I did not stop anyone from doing anything, and nobody had a problem with me up until the point you and your staff decided to take it out on all the customers and then cite a heckler's veto. Do you know what a heckler's veto is?
I do not.
Okay, it's his fault you're not getting your business. It's those two guys over there, it's their fault. Now I'm being threatened to get my ass kicked. Now some lady's yelling at me. Did I approach anybody?
Not based on the video that I saw, but
So you didn't see me approach anyone or start a dialogue with anyone, correct?
Not based on the video that I saw.
On the video did you see us walk in, talk to the gatekeeper, and stand here peacefully waiting for you to accept the document?
I was on lunch, sir. I did not.
Did you see anything like that? Did you go to the back in the videos to see?
No, sir. It was a live feed. I didn't have the ability to go back.
So you don't have recordings of what goes on in there?
We do, but in your
You can't access them?
if I may. In the
Can you
narrow-
access the records that you have on video?
Yes.
Did you do that?
Yes.
You did. Now, did you see us do anything other than walk in and stand peacefully next to the gatekeeper?
I didn't access those videos until after the fact.
Did you see us do anything other than stand there peacefully, doing exactly what the gatekeepers told us to do? Stand here, wait for Mr. Qued, he'll be right out.
I did see you do multiple things that are not standing there peacefully.
Okay, was that before or after you decided to stop running business?
That was after.
After you incited the crowd and told them it's mine and Anthony's fault for recording. Correct? Afterwards. And they engaged me.
I don't agree with the way that you're saying the incitement. We don't incite people. We shut down business.
How did they know that we were the issue then?
Because you were standing at the front door, sir.
Who told them we were not standing at the front door? Gatekeeper, right where she told us to stand. Stand right here, Mr. Couette will be right out.
Okay.
You're Mr. Couette, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you come right out?
No, sir.
No, you didn't. Okay. So, when you went back and watched, did you see us do anything? Again, this is all before you decided to cut off the public from your collection activities. They're there to pay you guys, keep you guys in business, keep the county up and running, right, supposedly? With all this tax money?
Can you repeat the question?
The clerks are there
There's a couple questions there. I'm just trying to
You and your staff are there to collect money from people, mostly unwillingly. They're doing there because they have to pay you, and then you take that money, I'm assuming, put in a pool and disperse it out to other government interests.
That's in a simplistic way. That is
Right.
what our office does.
Right.
We collect and then distribute to the different.
Right. So when you before you guys decided to cease serving over 100 people, did we do anything but stand here and record straight ahead?
Objection abstained.
Did we do anything besides that?
I don't know if it's a standing objection.
Was it only after you guys decided to shut down the business and blame us for it that people started engaging me?
This has already been answered.
He's gone down this line.
Did I engage them or did they engage me?
Already answered that, Mr. Felix.
I didn't get that answer. That's a simple one. Did they engage me? I never asked that question. Did I engage them or did they engage me?
Do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah, the answer is to my limited scope of what happened based on what I observed and based on my recording back in the office. People were approaching Mr. Felix, but Mr. Felix wasn't just standing there, he was walking around the office.
I was walking around where?
You're walking back and forth between the door, from what I observed.
You mean the pamphlets?
That's where the door is, we have a pamphlet.
Yeah, right next to it there's pamphlets for the public, correct?
Yes, sir.
Public information
Yes, sir.
for the general public. So while I was waiting, right, so while I was waiting for you to come out, I went back there and grabbed a pamphlet about the motorcycle license, went back to my tripod, stood there, didn't speak to anybody, sitting there reading your pamphlet, waiting for you to come out and take the piece of paper.
Okay.
Did you see anything outside of that?
Your question was, did you do anything other than come in and set up your truck on the stand right there?
Okay.
The answer is yes.
And the other thing I did was go grab a pamphlet and come right back.
And you had some interactions with some of the...
And I spoke to people who engaged me, correct?
Yes,
Did I engage anybody?
not to my knowledge.
No, okay. Give me a second here. You know why the original trespass was rescinded?
So, I believe a procedural error.
Can you be more specific?
I don't have...
The actual act of foundation, he got nothing to do with this. He initiated trespass warrant.
I agree with that.
Okay. Sorry to take so much time. Thanks for bearing with me. I really appreciate that. So we've gone over, the whole place is not an office. There is a public area, there's public information, there's public pamphlets. And the only thing you've seen me do was stand there and go one time and get a pamphlet and speak to people who were speaking to me.
So we've already done that.
Only after, was it before or after you decided to shut down business?
I've already answered this, sir.
Okay, so it was after. You testified as after.
You didn't make that argument to me yet.
All right.
But we've gone through that with that.
Okay, so just don't want to miss anything. So on Deputy Strzok body cam, you also told him that we got this from Manatee County, correct?
I've already went over this, sir.
Yeah, and you told him, well, I didn't tell him that out there.
I don't remember making...
Would you like me to play the video for you? Will that help refresh your memory?
I'm trying to find the relevance in that, sir.
Relevance is that outside you said he violated federal law. Inside you said we copied and pasted a policy for Manatee County. But I didn't tell him that. So you're making one report to one officer and a different report inside to another officer because, in your own words, you didn't know he was recording.